Silence removes your predictability. There is a subtle pattern in the way most people communicate. The moment they feel something, they express it. The moment they think something, they explain it. It feels natural to speak, to clarify, to make sure others understand what is going on internally. But in doing so, something important is revealed: not just information, but direction. When you consistently translate your thoughts into words, you make your behavior easier to read. What most people never notice is how quickly others begin to anticipate them. It does not require conscious effort. Human behavior is highly responsive to patterns. When someone explains themselves frequently, reacts verbally, or shares their intentions openly, others begin to form expectations. They start to predict how that person will respond, what they will say next, and how they will act under pressure. This predictability reduces uncertainty, and when uncertainty is reduced, control begins to shift. There is an emotional tension beneath this. The need to be understood feels like clarity, but it often leads to exposure. When you explain your reasoning too early, you allow others to position themselves before you have fully acted. They adjust, respond, or prepare in ways that shape the outcome before it unfolds. What could have remained flexible becomes fixed, simply because it was made visible too soon. The realization is not about avoiding communication altogether. It is about understanding the cost of unnecessary expression. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every intention needs to be shared. When you begin to contain your thinking, you preserve something that is often lost: unpredictability. And unpredictability is not about being random. It is about being unreadable in ways that prevent others from mapping your behavior too easily. As this awareness develops, your approach begins to change. You start to observe more and speak less. You allow situations to unfold without immediately inserting your perspective. You resist the impulse to clarify everything in real time. This creates space between what you think and what you reveal. In that space, your decisions have room to develop without interference. Over time, this changes how others interact with you. There is less certainty in how you will respond. People begin to hesitate, to reconsider, to pay closer attention, not because you are trying to create confusion, but because your behavior no longer follows an obvious pattern. When your reactions are not immediate, and your intentions are not fully visible, others cannot easily anticipate your next move. Internally, this creates a shift in control. You are no longer reacting to the need to be understood. You are operating from a position where understanding is not required for action. Your focus becomes more internal, less influenced by how others interpret you in the moment. This reduces the pressure to explain, defend, or justify. As this becomes consistent, your presence begins to feel different. Your actions carry more weight because they are not preceded by constant explanation. They appear more deliberate, more complete, and less influenced by external reactions. Others may not fully understand how you arrived at a decision, but they recognize that it was not formed in response to immediate pressure. Gradually, you begin to operate in a way that is harder to read, and therefore harder to influence. Your silence is not empty. It holds your direction without exposing it. And in that restraint, you retain control over how and when your actions become visible. Power lies in what you don't reveal. There is a natural tendency to equate visibility with progress. When something is being done, people feel the need to show it, explain it, or make it known. It creates a sense of movement, a sense that something is happening and being recognized. But beneath that, there is a quieter truth that most people overlook. The more visible your process becomes, the more exposed your direction becomes. And once your direction is visible, it is no longer entirely yours. What most people fail to notice is how attention changes behavior. The moment something is seen, it enters a shared space. Others begin to interpret it, respond to it, and position themselves around it. Even without intention, they begin to adjust. They may question it, support it, resist it, or simply observe it more closely. But regardless of their response, your process is no longer isolated. It is influenced by the presence of others. There is a pattern in human behavior that makes this even more significant. People respond more strongly to what they can see than to what remains hidden. Visible effort draws attention. Visible intention invites reaction. But what is forming quietly, without exposure, does not trigger the same response. It develops without interference. It becomes more refined because it is not constantly being shaped by external input. This creates an important distinction between intention and expression. Intention is internal. It is where clarity forms, where decisions take shape, where direction becomes defined. Expression is external. It is how that intention is presented, explained, or acted upon. When expression happens too early, it interrupts the development of intention. It introduces noise into a process that benefits from silence. The realization is not about secrecy in a manipulative sense. It is about understanding that not everything benefits from being seen immediately. Some things require time to mature without interruption. When you allow your intentions to remain internal until they are fully formed, you protect their clarity. You reduce the influence of external reactions, and you maintain control over how they unfold. As this awareness develops, your behavior begins to shift. You become less inclined to share what you are planning before it is necessary. You reduce the need to explain your direction in real time. You allow your actions to emerge without announcing them in advance. This creates a difference in how your decisions are experienced by others. They are not anticipated in the same way, and because of that, they carry more impact when they appear. There is also a change in how others engage with you. When your intentions are not fully visible, people cannot easily position themselves in relation to you. They cannot prepare for something they do not fully understand. This creates a subtle form of distance, not through avoidance, but through lack of exposure. Your movement becomes less constrained by external expectations. Internally, this builds a different kind of confidence. You are no longer dependent on sharing your process to feel progress. You trust that development can happen without constant visibility. Your focus shifts from being seen to being clear. You are not measuring your position by how much others know, but by how well you understand your own direction. Over time, this creates a pattern where your actions feel more complete when they appear. They are not interrupted or diluted by premature exposure. They arrive with clarity because they were allowed to form without interference. Others may not fully understand how you arrived there, but they recognize that it was not shaped by immediate reaction. As this continues, you begin to operate in a way that is quieter, but more controlled. Your presence does not rely on constant expression. It is defined by what you choose not to reveal until the moment requires it. And in that restraint, your position remains yours, unaffected by the noise that visibility often brings. Restraint creates psychological distance. There is a moment that most people overlook, because it feels too small to matter. It is the split second between what you feel and how you respond. In that moment there is an impulse to reply, to react, to clarify, to defend. It feels natural to close that gap immediately. But the speed of that response often determines how easily you can be read. What most people do not notice is that immediate reaction creates closeness. Not emotional closeness in a positive sense, but psychological accessibility. The faster you respond, the easier it becomes for others to map your behavior. They begin to understand what triggers you, how quickly you engage, and what kind of reaction they can expect. This creates a form of proximity, where your behavior becomes predictable and therefore easier to influence. The hidden element here is how discipline alters that distance. When you do not react immediately, you introduce a pause. That pause disrupts expectation. Others are no longer certain when or how you will respond. It is not the absence of response that creates distance, but the control over its timing. This timing removes the automatic connection between stimulus and reaction. There is an internal conflict in maintaining this discipline. The urge to respond does not disappear simply because you are aware of it. It remains present, pushing you to engage, to say something, to close the gap. But choosing not to act on that urge creates a different kind of control. It allows you to observe the moment without becoming part of it immediately. In that space, your perspective changes. Instead of being pulled into the interaction, you begin to see it more clearly. You notice patterns in tone, shifts in behavior, and underlying intentions that are often missed when reacting quickly. This awareness is not created through effort, but through distance. When you are not fully immersed in the moment, you are able to see its structure. This distance also introduces a boundary. You are no longer available in the same way. Your attention is not automatically given. Your response is not guaranteed. This does not make you detached in a negative sense. It makes your engagement selective. You are choosing when to step in rather than being pulled in by default. Over time, this changes how others experience you. There is less certainty in how you will respond, and that uncertainty creates hesitation. People become more aware of how they approach you because they cannot rely on predictable reactions. They begin to adjust their behavior, not because you have demanded it, but because your responses are no longer immediate or consistent in a way they can map. Internally, this builds stability. You are not being moved by every external input. Your state remains steady because it is not constantly shifting in response to what happens around you. You are maintaining your position rather than adjusting it moment by moment. This steadiness reduces the influence others have over your behavior. As this becomes consistent, your presence takes on a different quality. It is not defined by how often you respond, but by how you choose to respond. Your silence becomes part of your communication, not as absence, but as control. Others begin to sense that engagement with you is not automatic, and that creates a form of distance that is not forced, but naturally establish the authority of silent control. There is a version of you that no longer feels the need to participate in every exchange. He does not respond to every comment, does not explain every decision, and does not feel pulled into every situation that invites his attention. What changes is not the environment, but the level of involvement. He is present, but not absorbed, aware, but not reactive. And in that separation, something begins to stabilize. What most people never realize is what happens when you stop needing to respond. When you are no longer driven by the impulse to explain or defend, your behavior becomes less accessible. Others cannot easily predict when you will engage or how you will react. This unpredictability does not come from inconsistency, but from independence. You are not responding to external pressure, you are choosing your moments from a place that is internally defined. There is a deeper shift within this detachment. You begin to notice how much of interaction is driven by reaction. People respond quickly, often without pause, guided by emotion, expectation, or the need to be acknowledged. But when you step outside of that pattern, you begin to see it more clearly. You are no longer moving at the same pace. You are observing the structure rather than being caught inside it. Over time, this creates a different kind of authority. It is not expressed through dominance or force. It is reflected in consistency. You remain steady regardless of how others behave. You do not accelerate when challenged, and you do not retreat when misunderstood. This steadiness introduces a contrast. While others are adjusting constantly, you remain unchanged. And that difference becomes noticeable. There is also a long-term effect that develops. When your behavior is not influenced by the need to respond, your actions begin to accumulate without interruption. You are not resetting your position with each interaction. You are building it gradually, with each decision aligned to a consistent internal standard. This creates outcomes that appear controlled, even when they are not visible in real time. As this pattern continues, your identity begins to consolidate. You are no longer someone who participates in every moment to maintain relevance. You are someone who decides when relevance is necessary. Your presence is not defined by how often you speak, but by how deliberate your engagement becomes. Others may not fully understand your approach, but they begin to sense that it is not easily influenced. Internally, the shift is just as significant. You feel less pressure to respond, less urgency to prove, and more clarity in how you move. Your focus is not divided across every interaction. It is directed toward what matters. This clarity reduces noise, both externally and internally, allowing your decisions to remain stable. Eventually, a realization settles in. Control was never in how much you said, but in how little you needed to. And when that need disappears, your presence begins to shape the interaction, without requiring explanation.